How did we get to this? What is this? We're looking at one thing from many angles at the same time. With more perspectives on anything, we can understand it better. Isn't that why you're all here? Because you can do that. We see things from so many different angles, and we can understand it better. You're Cubists today. Cubism happened in 7 years. 1907 to 1914, ends with World War I. A few people having conversations in their studios. A revolution, a movement, a period. A few people who are just interested in seeing. Picasso's 26 years old, is looking at a figure and saying, portraiture, that's been around for hundreds of years. But is it really portraying at its best? I mean, can we really see everything? I mean, I have a figure posed in one position, held, suspended over time. Right? If it takes me a day, an hour, a month to make, I'm seeing something held over time. Well, one question is, what if I put the figure in front of me, I remove its clothes, I say, just be, and then I'm going to be present. It's a necessity, an urgency to do it right now, to see all of it, right? Well, as it moves, I'm going to just draw it and see what I see. Okay, wait, she just turned her head, and now she's facing down. She's rotating. I see her foot, and it's all happening right now. And in a way, you become an expert on that thing because you've seen it from all of its angles at the same time. Isn't that how we see everything today? We're more equipped to see that way than ever before, from all the angles. It's not to be interesting, right? Oh, I'm going to put an eye over here, and I'm going to put a nose coming out of my chin. It's about being interested in something, in how something is, how we see it, seeing it from all of its angles at once. It's about pointing to something and being specific. We're more equipped to see this way than ever before, and that's how we see today. We live in a world of Facebook, of Twitter, right? I mean, so many things happening, and we can relate them all to each other. Each thing influences the other thing, and that's how we see. And isn't the greatest work of art of any era one that shows us how we see, or what we see? Other people were asking the same thing. Brock, 1911, is saying perspective, well, that's been around for hundreds of years, right? That's when something gets further away from me, it gets smaller. Okay, I'm looking at my foot, that makes sense, right? As it gets further from me, it gets smaller, and then I look up and, well, something out there, that's getting smaller because it's getting further away from me, and there's another vantage point there, right? Things are getting, well, there's all these perspectives, right? Well, it can't just be one I got to see all of it at once. We're hungry that way. So I'm just going to stand here, and I'm going to put them all there. And it looks like that. Because we see it all at once. Other people are asking questions like that. Matisse, 1911, is in his studio and saying, you know, wait a minute, that thing over there, well, I'm really interested in that thing, and it's actually more interesting than this thing that's really close to me. Well, that messes around with perspective, right? And here's another thing. I can look at this, and maybe the only thing that matters about this is how it better describes that. And, well, if I give you just enough information about this thing, I can show you how it relates to that thing. And then I can just start showing you all the relationships between things and have them converse. And it's not about how they look when they get further away from me. It's about their relationships to each other. And the lines get really thin because we start to see all the multiple descriptions, like a definition of one thing describing the other more. And the lines get thin, and it becomes almost one big red studio. You know, we live in a world, Facebook lets us do this. And it's a world of advertisements, right? And collected information, right? It comes to us so quickly. We've developed a 2-second attention span, right? I mean, everyone knows this. You go into a gallery, you've seen someone go into a gallery, right? And it looks like this, 1, 2, 1, 2, oh wow, 2, 1, right? That's what it is, because we're hungry. We want all this information as quickly as we can, and we need to make sense of it from all of its angles and define it better. We're Cubists. And if it's interesting enough, you'll tell someone, go to the MoMA and stand in front of this thing from where the artist made it, from where Matisse stood when he looked at the room. And other things get revealed, right? About the perspectives. You look down, if you're standing there, and you see a table and there's a plate, and you can see the top of the plate, all of it. It's round, there it is. But then I look up, and there's a picture across the room, and that's flat. I see all of it. Wait, but the window is going back in space. Okay, well, that makes sense, because the perspective there, and I can see the light switch, and it's just, the perspective all makes sense. And there's another thing. My mother. Not profound. You look at something like that. David Hockney did in 1985. Tell me that's not Google Earth in 1985. You see your mother, right? My mother. Something so profound from every angle at the same time. You've seen it from under the nose, straight on, above, right? And it all arrives at once. Painting does that. Other art forms, music, dance, poetry, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. It kind of unfolds. Painting, you open your eyes and your mother's there and a whole history is there at once. All of it, all the footnotes you've collected, it has to happen at once. And you look down and you can see the top of your foot, and you look out and you see the figure facing you, and you look up and you see the sky. But it all makes sense because we're trying to understand the world. And then it's not just in the 80s. In the 1600s, Greco was doing the same thing. He was a Cubist. Right? You look up at the heavens and look down at Earth, and you can still see the tops of people's feet and straight on looking at their face. And now we can tackle things like the Grand Canyon. Right? David Hockney, 1998, says, I want to get the Grand Canyon. I'm going to tackle something like that. Well, how do we see? Well, we take 60 paintings. Each one has its own vantage point. I'm going to put them together, and I'll make it 24 feet across. You can take that. And today we see even greater things. And, you walk into someone's studio or to an office or to a laboratory, and you say, these bad works are the most exciting things, right? Because someone's trying to look at something from all of its angles, and it might be brown or it might be gray, maybe a little muddy, right? But there's an urgency. It needed to be all seen at once, right now. And then you can do things in that urgency this profound. Picasso's 90 years old. He makes a picture of his wife because it needed to be made right now. Right? You live with someone, you watch them from all of their angles. You've touched that face, that's Jacqueline, his wife. You've kissed those lips. And then you can do something like this. With just one line describes it. Why? Because it needed to be made right now. That's what makes something so incredible. It has those two things. One, it needed to be made right now. That's what makes something like listening to a Bach sonata relevant today. If it's played with this urgency and necessity that it needs to be played right now. And the second thing, it needs to be made right now and by you. Thank you.